In this lesson, we are going to take a detailed look at driving dimensions. The model you see on the screen is a model we've used in previous lessons called the wedge, and you can find this in your working files folder if you want to work along with me. Now, this wedge was created with a number of sketches and features, all of which had dimensions associated with them. Now, those dimensions in the sketches and features, by default, were marked to be imported into a drawing should you so desire. Let's take a look at what I'm referring to. If I double-click on this feature, the dimensions appear for the feature. If I double-click on this 1.120 dimension, a dialog box appears, and this is the option I am referring to. This option, by default, is turned on. It is marking this dimension, so it's available to be imported into a drawing. With that said, let's close out of this dialog box and close out of this property manager, and let's create a drawing for this wedge. I am going to select the drop down next to the new icon, and then select Make Drawing from Part. We're going to use a B and C landscape. I'll select OK. And because the wedge was created in inches, I need to change my units to IPS. Now I'm ready to insert the view, so I go to the View Layout ribbon, select Model View, then Browse. I'll select the wedge, Open, and now I'm ready to place it on the sheet. For some reason, this rectangle looks too large for the front view I'm expecting. But let's go ahead and place it to see what we have. And this is why it's too large. It gave me an isometric. Not a problem though. I simply need to go to the property manager and select the front view. There we go. I'm going to close out of this property manager, go to the View Layout ribbon, select the projected view, and project a right-hand side view and a top view. We'll then reposition the views so we have a little more room. And now we are ready to import the driving dimensions that were used to build a 3D model for this wedge. So how do we import the dimensions? We need to go to the Annotation ribbon and select Model Items. The Property Manager opens, and at the very top of the Property Manager is asking for a source. Now, do you want the source to be the entire model or a selected feature on the model? I want it to be the entire model. Right below this, when we import these model items, do you want to import it to all of the views? In this example, it would be the front, top, and right side view. Or do you want to import the items to the front view, for example? I want to import the items to all views, so I'm going to put a check mark in this checkbox. Right below this, we have an area for dimension model items. Notice one is already activated. This one is marked for drawing. These are the dimensions that were marked for the drawing back in the part environment. The next option is for not marked for drawing. Then we have instances and revolution, we have tolerances, and a few more. I'm only going to select the dimensions marked for drawing. Notice we have a checkbox to eliminate duplicate dimensions. Typically, you want that checked. Right below this, we can import annotations. For example, notes, finish marks, GD&T, weld symbols, and some others. Right below this, we have reference geometry, planes, lines, points. In this property manager, I am only going to select the dimensions marked for the drawing. I'll select the green check mark, and notice on the screen, the driving dimensions were imported into all views. Now, the downside to driving dimensions is you're going to have some cleanup work to do. Notice as we look around, I have crossing dimensions here, I have a dimension on the view here, a couple dimensions on the view here, so I do have a little bit of cleanup work to do. Now, this is a fairly easy part. When the parts get more complex, there's a lot more cleanup work. That is the downside to using driving dimensions. That's why some people prefer driven dimensions. You have more control over their placement, and it's easier to make adjustments to driven dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and pull some of these out just by holding down the left mouse button. I can place them in a better location. The nice thing about driving dimensions, you can double click on a driving dimension, change the value, and the geometry updates on the screen. And once we save this drawing, the next time you open up this part model in the part environment, that change will be reflected in the model. Now let's say, for example, you want to move this 4.70 dimension down to the front view. That's easily done. You hold down the Shift key and then hold down the left mouse button and drag it into the view. And notice it moves the dimension to the front view. Let's say, for example, instead of moving it, you simply wanted to copy it. Well, instead of holding down the Shift key, hold down the Control key and then hold down the left mouse button, drag it to the view, and it copies it. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom up on a couple of these dimensions here. If you select the dimension, notice you can click the arrow and it flips the arrow to the other side. If you select a dimension, the Property Manager opens. You can add tolerances. You can add a prefix, suffix. You can add common dimensioning symbols. Very easy to add and modify these values. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this and we'll fit this to the screen. Now, if you do delete a driving dimension that was imported from a 3D model, no worries. If you delete a driving dimension in the drawing environment, it does not affect the 3D model. That dimension is still in the 3D model. So just be aware of that. Not a big deal if you delete a driving dimension. So that gives you an idea of how driving dimensions work. A lot of people like driving dimensions because it's very efficient. These dimensions already exist back in the 3D model, so to insert them into your drawing environment makes sense. However, there is some cleanup work to do, so you have to decide if driving dimensions is for you. In the next lesson, we're going to take a close look at driven dimensions. Once you get through these two lessons, you will be well versed in both driving and driven dimensions.